What's up, what's up? Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, and Soapy, I do hear you're a fan a little bit. Soapy asked me that just before we were coming live. Let me unmute him. Welcome into another edition of MVP Games Live. I think I said Sports Live. I meant Games Live here on either Twitch or YouTube. You guys know the drill. Ricky also wears a shirt that is non-black, and my space around me colors out on me. I don't know what it is. Anytime I wear a shirt, Soapy, that is not black, the space around me turns more yellow. So we're going to have to deal with that today. I am joined with my beautiful co-host, as I always am, Soapy Muffin.
Hey, sorry I had to get up and turn my fan off.
You're good, you're good. How's your Monday doing, big guy?
It's okay. I'm back to work.
You were off this weekend, right?
Well, for different reasons. It wasn't like weekend actually
okay.
off.
That's right. You were feeling a little under the weather on Friday and was off this weekend because of it. I say off because, like Soapy said, it wasn't his weekend off. But Soapy, it is a Monday, which means we're back to breaking some molds today. We had a great topic, a great kind of just sit down. We'll push the news to tomorrow. You'll hear that Soapy is not excited about the Borderlands movie probably tomorrow, because we'll probably hit that to some point because we got a synopsis for it. Or will you hear that Soapy is so excited for it and he can't wait for the Borderlands movie?
Who knows?
Soapy, who knows? Maybe you'll find out tomorrow. Maybe you won't, because I'll just refuse to talk about it. But we're breaking some molds today, talking about our favorite settings in video games. Before we get into that, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Number one, if you're not in the MVP Discord, you're behind the eight ball. It is the greatest community in the universe, and you can join today for free. If you're on YouTube, link down below. You can go click on that. You're in it for free. Twitch, just type !Discord into Twitch chat. Boom. You have that link ready for you. If you want to support us, patreon.com/MVPvids is how you go ahead and do that. You can also throw us a sub at twitch.tv/MVPvids. Thank you to our Patreon producer, by the way, Pat Hill. We're always on Twitch, twitch.tv/MVPvids. We're also on YouTube at MVP Entertainment. And Soapy, that brings us into housekeeping out of the way, into the topic for today's show. The main thing we're talking about is what are our favorite settings in video games? The exact way you phrased the question at the first part, Soapy, was the atmosphere. So this is all about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Soapy, not just the feel of the game. It's not like how it plays. It's the world that this game puts you in. That is your favorite. That you are in this world, you feel in this world, and does it pull you in, and is it your favorite? Did I hit that right on the head?
Yep, that's exactly what I was meaning by it. Essentially, what draws you in, like what game style, or not even game styles, like game atmospheres, game settings, like draw you in the most.
I will kick it off to you first then, like I always do. Where do you want to start? What's a game or a franchise where you're like, you know what? This is the setting that I love the most.
We'll see. I got at least two.
Okay, start with one, because I've got a couple. I've got maybe one or two also.
All right. Pick a number one or two, because I don't really care which one I start with. All right. So we're going to start off with, some good old classic game that's supposed to be hard, but it ends up not being hard if you're actually good at the game. Dark Souls.
Okay.
And the thing that draws me so much into Dark Souls, like world and atmosphere, is the fact of you feel like, not like a sense of dread.
Mm-hmm.
Because like a lot of people are like, oh, the world looks really dreary and everything, but it's like, it's kind of supposed to be like that. It ties directly into the story.
Yeah.
For people who don't know what the overarching storyline for the three Dark Souls games is essentially the world, the Age of Fire, if I could speak English, is coming to an end. And it's essentially you, the player, are trying to keep it alive. And with each game, like obviously the first game, obviously the game's bright because, you don't want to just play a game in complete darkness.
Mm-hmm.
But like each game, like the first one's like not vibrant. Like you can tell, like, okay, like there's still something to it. By the second game, it's like, okay, we lost a little bit of it. And the third one's like, holy shit, where did it all go?
So you start with light, and by each game goes on, you're kind of losing that light, right?
Yeah. It's essentially, I don't want to like make the joke of it, but like it's like they started like slapping like a gray sepia filter over everything. They're like, oh yeah, this is getting better. This is getting better, more intense. But like it's that sort of feeling to it of like, oh, it feels like a diminishing return, which is the overarching story.
What do you mean by diminishing? Sir, someone who's like myself, where that went over my head. What do you mean? Like, is it something to where? Because here's the thing: the Dark Souls games I've not played. Dark Souls, Demon Souls, have not played them at all. So for me to explain it to someone who has not played it, when you say diminishing returns, is it something to where it's like the work that you put in means the reward is not as big, or it's like it takes so much work to actually beat the game and get to where you want to go?
Okay, so what I mean, and once again, this ties into like the overarching story of it, and this ties into the endings as well. So, spoiler: if anyone hasn't played the Dark Souls games, they're still pretty fucking old.
Yeah.
But like for instance, when you beat the first one and you rekindle the bonfire, or if you decide to rekindle the bonfire, like it's this big, massive, like oh shit, big fire. Second game, you do it like, it's a pretty big fire. By the third one, it's literally just like a little sparkle of just like, oh, cool, that didn't mean shit.
Okay. So it's like, wow, that was awesome. Like rekindling the bonfire, boom, it's very big. By the third game, it's like, wow, should I have even done that? Like, was that even needed?
Yep, that's the overall theme of the third game, by the way. Anyone who plays through it, it's to essentially teach you that running from change is a fucking inevitable, and you can't stop it.
What, running from change, or that change is inevitable?
Yeah, change is inevitable. Okay. That's essentially what.
So then, is there a way to beat the game? Like,
oh no, you can.
Okay, that just seems like a game where it's like, nope, you're gonna lose. You just play until you die.
I mean, you still play, like you still technically beat the game no matter what ending you get.
No, but I mean like a good ending, or is the third one a game where it's supposed to have a negative or bad ending?
Sort of ambiguous in a sense.
Okay.
Of like, it depends on what you view as good.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 endings. One of them is just the definitive bad guy ending of you were like, okay, fuck it, I'll take the rest of the fire. It's my fire now. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's the definitive bad guy one, but there's the one where you let the fire burn out and you don't rekindle it. There's the one that you sacrifice yourself to rekindle it, and you see the little like poof, and it's like, cool, that wasn't fucking worth it. And then there's the one that you let the firekeeper have it, and she tries to keep it alive longer. Okay.
So it's just you like it because of that thing where like each game kind of changes, and you see that change through each of the games.
Yeah, and it kind of relays that overarching story as well. And obviously, I could gush about Dark Souls 3 for fucking hours. That game is beautiful.
Yeah.
But my bad.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought. Look, I was just going to move on into mine, so if you got more, go ahead and keep talking.
Yeah, like that's kind of where like the atmosphere of it as well, of it makes you kind of, it has like a sense of like perspective to it, of like obviously for instance, you as the player, you always have this complex of like, I'm the most important thing in this world.
Protagonist syndrome.
Yeah, like main character syndrome, like this is my world, I'm doing this. But like you play the games and you fight some of the bosses, like holy shit, I am tiny. like I don't mean shit to this person.
I am a speck in this universe.
Yeah. Like for instance, whenever you see I'm trying to like in the first game when you fight Ornstein and Smo, you're at like Smo's fucking knee.
Yeah.
When you fight him, and like your character, like obviously we don't know what the actual height of the character is.
Yeah.
But like Smo fucking is really big when you fight him. Like Ornstein and Smo are both really fucking huge, and when you fight them, like it gives you that sense of reality of like, oh, I don't mean shit to these people. I'm just some dumbass who ran in like, I want a knight to fire.
I'm here. I'm the main character. Pay attention to me.
Yeah, that's essentially what you fucking feel like when you run in and you see this big fat guy and this fucking guy wearing like a lion's armor. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm a little fucking pipsqueak to these guys.
I would say for me, the first one I'm going to start off with is, so maybe it's because I just played a game like this that it's so prevalent in my mind, but it is one of my favorite settings is, so just beat Last of Us 1 this weekend. I'm actually planning on starting on stream, Soapy, Last of Us 2 tonight. Tonight or tomorrow. Probably tonight, though. So Soapy can finally talk about the game, and I don't have to be like, shh, Soapy, quiet down. I haven't finished it yet. So there's that. But also, there's, how do I want to put this? The game I want to mention is Days Gone. Have you ever played Days Gone or seen Days Gone, Soapy?
I've seen people play it. I didn't watch people play all the way through it, mostly because I can't play it because it's a PlayStation exclusive.
In case you have not watched someone play it, or in case you're out there and you're like, I know nothing about it, Days Gone kind of falls into the same category as The Last of Us. I won't go spoilery, but it's basically you play as this guy, main character Deacon, and there's the stereotypical zombie outbreak. And you, at the beginning, play through, it's your best bud and your wife. You guys are trying to get out. Your wife doesn't make it. And then basically the game picks up in the post-zombie outbreak world to where you and your best friend live in like a woods tower, kind of like in Firewatch. And it's all about you.
So like Firewatch Tower.
Yeah, you're the one that goes out on your motorcycle and basically has to pick up fuel and stuff and food and shit. And the thing I love about that game specifically, because it's a little bit different than The Last of Us, where Last of Us, I love the setting because of the work that the devs put into it. Like, my favorite scene in that entire... There's really... I'm trying to think. There's really two scenes where there's one where you guys come up to the hospital for the first time, and, like, you see the sun coming down, you see the beautiful mountains in the background, and, like, playing that this weekend, I was like, damn, I forgot how beautiful this game was. Then there's also, like, the right at the end, right before everything just goes to shit, and it's like, basically, you're gonna have to free Ellie, you're gonna shoot the bitch from the fireflies just right in the forehead. Basically, everything is going to escalate from here. That moment where you get some peace, where Ellie, like, the giraffe comes up to you, you look out, you see the giraffes, you see all the landscape, yet again, the mountains, the sun. The thing with Days Gone that's different is it's more open world. So to me, that pulled me into the world more, to where it's, because I have to, it's not a, like, Last of Us is point A, point B, the game is taking you on a predetermined path. Whereas this one is, yeah, it's kind of a predetermined path. You have to go through the main storyline, but there are side missions. You can go and travel to find the zombies. And, like, the thing I like about it even more is it's one of those games that switches from day to night. To where if you're out too long, it switches to night. That changes how the zombies or the infected kind of how they work, and kind of like in Days Late, they become more active at night and you have to avoid them more at night. So it's like games like that really draw me in, to where it's like, I love the zombie outbreak games, but I also love it when it's kind of an open world and you can kind of explore it. Like, that's also why I liked Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I love open world games.
Yeah, and as well, relating it into the...
Except boat battles, Soapy. Those boat battles sucked.
Oh yeah, fuck boat battles. The only time boat battles were good were in fucking Rogue and Black Flag, and that's because it was literally fucking cannons.
I would assume
I need to shoot my spear at them.
I would assume that they, like, a game like Black Flag, though, if the boat battles aren't good, then it's a bad game. Like, if you're making a pirate game, boat battles need to be top tier.
Yeah. But kind of with the setting of Days Gone as well, I would, and obviously, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously, like I said, I didn't play it.
Yeah.
It kind of still fits into that somewhat, like, lonely atmosphere, sort of like when you're out, like, away from, like, the watchtower, essentially. Yeah. Like, it feels extremely isolated. Like,
you're all on your own.
Say, like,
it almost adds, for me, a sense of anxiety, because the slightest sound that you hear, or like for me, when it would start changing from day to night, I would get all anxious. Like, holy shit, I gotta work my way back to the tower, because not only did Days Gone have it to where the zombies got more active at night, they had a unique feature, and I remember us talking about it on Too Old the Game before the game came out, where they had hordes, and hordes were like a group of 50 plus zombies. That usually these zombies during the day would be in a cave, or there was one in like a big barn where they would just sit and be inactive until night. You fucking like running into one of those during the day, fine, because I can kind of work my way around and run away from them because I know where I'm going. You run into those fucking hordes at night, you're done. You're done, because it's like, holy shit, I can't see anything. I don't know if one's going to come up from behind me. So it kind of adds that sense of anxiety too, especially to me.
Yeah, and settings like that as well interest me, because that kind of ties into my second one,
Go
but
ahead.
we'll kind of stick onto this one a little
Okay.
bit, or at least it's like pieces of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But like with the zombie stuff, I think that adds like that very atmospheric of like, and this is the part that ties into my second one,
Mm-hmm.
of like you're almost looking at it as if like, holy shit, like this place looks a lot different when there's not people around.
Yes.
Of like, for instance, I know Last of Us did this really well
Mm-hmm.
too. Of like when you leave like the first city,
Mm-hmm.
and you're walking around, and you walk around like the abandoned, like you're basically seeing like the world, and it's like, holy shit, like
Mm-hmm.
this place went to hell real quick.
Yeah. They also have, and yet again, I'm going to bring in Red Dead for this, because Red Dead did this also. They also have it to where it's like, if I'm just out on my bike, there's a chance I may run into like outlaws who are like, oh, we're going to try to kill you, take your stuff, because it's every man for themselves. Kind of like how in Red Dead, you may run into people to where it's like, the classic one I always liked is, hey man, can you help me? And you're like, oh, I'm going to be a good guy, get off my horse and help them. And then boom, they've got two other people there that ambush you, try to kill you.
Yeah. And that's as well with it of, I like in games, especially like Red Dead, when they focus so much on
Mm-hmm.
the, like when they focus on the atmosphere around it, and like you almost feel, like when you're out in the woods, you feel alone.
Yeah.
I like the fact of like, just when something happens, it just seems to come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't feel like oh, I'm turning this corner, I guarantee there's going to be something around this corner.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where I view it as, like atmospheres like that of like this, not like unpredictable,
Mm-hmm.
but like the feeling of, like, oh, when you're in like towns, it feels like a town.
Yeah.
When you're out in the woods, it feels like the woods. Like I like it when people get stuff like that right. It's like, I don't want to go out in the woods and have it like there's a conga line of fucking people and their horses, like like just all of them just being like, oh hey, watch where you're going, hey.
Yeah.
Like I essentially don't want
That's a good boy. That's a good boy.
I don't want like a whole line of Arthurs out in the woods saying that's a good boy to their horse.
I mean, that's another, like, yet again, I'm going to keep on the open world thing, and then we'll get into your second one, because you said this kind of played into it, I just love games that do open world well. Like, Days Gone had a beautiful, like, and the thing with Days Gone is they had different places. Like, they had, the place you start out with was more of a woodland area. They had more of like a desert area. They even had a third, after the third area, which was more like of a like lake, they had a fourth area, which was like outside of your map. So it was almost like, oh shit, there's a bigger world outside of us even that we don't even know about. And like Red Dead, that map was so fucking huge to where it's like you had snowy areas, you had plains areas, you had desert areas, you had wood areas, or like the bayou, and like the trophy that I had done where it's like kill the exotic or trap the exotic animals, like being able to track those different animals across this entire map, or like that the atmosphere, they made it to where the atmosphere in Saint Denis was different than the small podunk town that you started in, kind of a thing that had the local sheriff. And it's like, this seems like a very very Western kind of a town, where Saint Denis kind of felt a little bit like Narlands back in the day, where it was like, okay, this is kind of more civilized place, and they made them different too. Like, that feeds into the atmosphere in my mind.
Yeah, and that's always something that I love to see of how can you differentiate like a small town from a large town.
Yep.
Like, essentially, I like atmospheres of where like they feel lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Of where like in Red Dead, you find houses randomly around. It's not just like you're in tall trees and there's not a single fucking house or cabin in the entire thing. It's like, you can't tell me that someone wasn't like, I want to live out in the woods.
Yeah.
It's like, hell, there's people who live out in the desert. You can't tell me someone's like, you know what? Fuck water. Who needs water? I'm living out there.
Like, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I loved Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I loved the open worldness. But the one negative I would say on the setting is, yes, they hit the key points that, like, the Spartans, the Athens, like, they were true to what they would be. But after a while, you're like, okay, it just looks like another Greek city to me. Looks like more Greek architecture, to where, to me, there were some differences, but it was like whenever you went into a town, it was like, okay, this is just a Greek town.
Yep. And obviously, with that one, it was, the Greeks didn't really build like different towns. They just hated each other.
Yeah.
So moving on into my second one.
Hit me with it.
To kind of tie into like the more like atmospheric of like kind of like a ghost town thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really love the setting and atmosphere of Fallout.
Okay.
Like the Fallout games of like that sort of essentially, and especially because it's a term that they coined. I don't know if this is like a real term or like basically people in Fallout made it up. Of essentially called like old world blues. Of essentially, it's you look back on what something was, and you're like, dude, that's so fucking cool. Why can't we have that? Like, essentially, like, you pine for something that used to be, like, great. Which I think, like, it's based on, like, an actual idea, but I don't know if it's called Old World Blues. And essentially, that, like, atmospheric idea of, like, you see these people living in, like, squalor and shit, essentially. Like, these guys are living in, like, rusted shacks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not living in good conditions. And then, like, because I'll use Fallout 4, for example, like, you see people living in, like, Bunker Hill, and it's literally, like, one part of the building left, and that's what they're living in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay. Like, obviously, Bunker Hill is located within, like, the big fucking city in the game.
Yeah.
So it's different, but, like, you go to places like Covenant, and, like, it's a collection of, like, 3 houses with a wall built around it.
Mm-hmm.
Of, like, oh, okay, cool. And then you see other towns where, like, they're, like, these little, like, shacks built around. It's like, oh. And then you look off in the distance, you see Boston, and it's like, oh, cool. There's skyscrapers. There's still working signs and shit. Like, that stuff still kind of works.
So it's kind of almost like you said, the same thing of, like, it's similar to where it's like each area is kind of different. And it's hey, how do I want to put it? Where, like we were saying, where it's one world, but hey, there are differences to people that live in this area compared to this area within the video game.
Yeah, and as well, because like I'll use the older ones for that example, because Fallout 4 doesn't do a super good job at doing that. Because essentially, you go to Bunker Hill, they behave the exact same way as like if you go to Diamond City.
Okay.
Like, no matter where you go in Fallout 4, everyone acts the same.
Okay.
But like in the older games, for instance, like when you find Shady Sands, like not that far after you get out of the vault, like you pop out and someone's like, "Oh, hey, if you're looking for work, go to Shady Sands." You're like, "Shit, I want to find some work."
Shit.
And you go and you show up there, and like it's kind of a hodunk town. These people like, "Hey, we're barely getting by. This is what we're doing." And like it's that sort of like, okay, these guys have built everything they have from scratch. They didn't build this, like, this wasn't like in the ruins of like a great city or something.
Yeah.
Like, this is just like, oh, hey, they built those shacks. But then you go to, like, later in the game, when you find out where the actual water chip is in Acropolis, you go there and it's like, cool, this is like a fucking ruined city. These guys are living in, like, broken skyscrapers and shit.
Yeah.
And it's like they behave differently because they're like, oh, hey, we don't have to worry about like our shitty wooden shack breaking because we got this giant fucking skyscraper. All we got to do is worry about like the rust that's going to knock these things over at some point.
Yeah. I mean, and it blows my mind how some devs are able to, hey, we're going to differentiate between these areas and have it to where each one kind of feels like its own. And that kind of brings me into, I'm going to piggyback off of yours and bring in another one that I kind of like. And the only reason I didn't bring this up first is the game itself is nothing. Like, the game itself and the gameplay itself is nothing to be like, holy shit, I can't believe that this game is out. But, like, I think of World of Warcraft to where, and more specifically to me, like the TBC. Like right now I'm playing Burning Crusade, getting ready for Burning Crusade Classic to come out. And the one thing that Blizzard is so good at, and you can say even the same thing about Overwatch with the different maps that they have, where Blizzard is really good in my sense of making zones and making those zones feel different from one another. Like I'll use the more up-to-date reference. Like when I played Shadowlands, they had the 4 different areas that was like the 4 main covenants. Each one felt vastly different than the other, and they were vibrant. Like one was, so Bastion was like reminded me very much of like Angelic in Greece, kind of, to where it's like a lot of bronze, a lot of white. It's like plains is the setting of the land. Whereas you go to Ardenweald, that's more of like fairyland, where it's more fairies, it's more mystical, but it's a woodland area. It's a lot of woods and trees and that kind of setting. You go to Ravenweald, that's just straight gothic. Like straight vampire. It felt like, boom, I'm in Transylvania with the vampires. The entire thing. Dark, gothic. And then you go to the last one that I can't remember because I haven't played Shadowlands in a hot minute. But the last one was, hey, we're putting you in kind of the plague, like, not the plague lands, but like this area that's rotted with acid, and it's a mountainous area, and it's all green and dark, and it just feels like, wow, this land got infected by plague, and it's basically eating the world around it. All 4 of those vastly different. You can say the same for Overwatch, that Hanamura is vastly different than Li Zhang. That's vastly different. I'm trying to think of another Overwatch map. Then, what's the map that came out with Orisa? Like they're all different. One's a metropolitan area. One was like a Japanese hut. There was another
the
one.
The Orisa map, by the way, was one that was already in there. It was just they slightly changed it when she came out.
Yeah,
that was the M1
called?
set in Brazil.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was set.
Yeah,
I almost said Rio, but I was like, I don't think it's Rio.
It might be something like that. That wasn't the name of the map, but it might have been in Rio. But like besides that, the point is like each one of those was vastly different as well. To where like I just think Blizzard games do a good job at changing their setting and making them unique. And like I'll ask you, Soapy, I don't know, like I mentioned World of Warcraft and Overwatch. Does Diablo do the same thing? Nimbani, that's it. Did Diablo do the same thing, or was Diablo kind of like blanketed with its setting?
Diablo was very like doom and gloom all the way through. It was just essentially it's different place, same flavor.
Okay.
Of like, for instance, like I'll use Diablo 3 for example because that's the one I remember most vividly.
Yeah.
Like you start off in New Tristram, and it's just like a shitty little town.
Yeah.
You go to the next place, which is a desert. You're in a slightly bigger shitty town.
A slightly bigger shitty town. It's shitty, but it's bigger. I guess that's better.
Yeah. So, like, essentially, Diablo kind of falls into the, like I said, like, different place, same flavor.
Yeah.
But, because also, another thing with Fallout that, as well, to kind of, I don't want to say backtrack, but, like, bring it back to kind of the setting I was talking about, was this sort of the way that it's always the alternate history shit that gets me. I don't know why. Alternate history in games is just super fun to me. I don't know why. Because, for instance, like, I wasn't even going to really...
It's just overall unique, or it's just interesting to think about. Like, it goes back to our innate curiosity as humans. Like, what would be different if this one thing changed? If the butterfly effect took place? If this one thing, for example, the one that everyone loves to talk about, if Hitler never died, or if Hitler never grew to power, or if you killed Hitler as an infant, how does that change the world? Like, it's the curiosity of us as humans.
Yeah, and as well, because, like, for instance, with Fallout, for people who don't know, the reason why, like, Fallout's world is set in, like, this weird, like, 40s and 50s era America is because, essentially, they had it that, like, the microchip was never invented.
Yeah.
So, essentially, computers never really got better, but, like, computing around it got better. And then, for instance, obviously, they had it that, like, we didn't focus on blowing each other up or thinking about blowing each other up. Like, essentially, we still had, like, the Red Menace and the Red Scare. But, like, for instance, in Fallout's world, it wasn't Russia we were scared of, it was China.
Yeah.
Or essentially, you know, that continued for so long in the thing. And it was also, you know, essentially, nuclear research wasn't just aimed at, like, hey, I can build a bigger fucking bomb than you can, dummy.
My missile's longer than your missile.
Oh, yeah, my missile can hit the other side of your country. Dum-dum, what can yours do? Like, essentially, like, instead of ours being like that, it was like how can we use nuclear power to better the entire, like, our economy?
Yeah.
So we're essentially, like, cars are, like, atomically ran. Robots are like, essentially, they created robots off the idea of, like, hey, fuck that. I don't want to mow my lawn. Have the robot do it.
So, like, I'm not going to say it. Not even going to make the joke. Not even going to go there, Soapy. Not going to go there. It's kind of like robot slavery. Hey, I don't want to do it. Let the robot do it. There, I went there.
Yeah. I mean, essentially.
And then the machines rise against us, Soapy. That's where it starts.
No, they're incapable of doing that in Fallout. I think the only time they did was, like, one time.
Because you want to know why that always happens? Because nobody wants to do the shit jobs. We want the robot to do it. The robot doesn't want to do it. So,
well, the robot don't got feelings.
Eventually, nobody's going to be doing the shit jobs, and they don't get done.
I mean, the robots would find someone else to do the shit job.
So what they do is they use their technology to make animals smart enough to where animals are doing the shit job. Then animals find a way to have someone else do it. And it's just the chain of who.
You say this as a joke, but this has happened in Fallout.
Oh, I figured, Soapy. It just the next chain of the, like, who's gonna do the shit job next.
Yeah, and as well, kind of with the alternate history thing as well. The thing that really interests me, and, like, this isn't even really, like, alternate history, but, like, it's the sort of, like, oh, it's futuristic, but, like, there's shit from, like, the 60s and 70s and stuff like that is, like, aliens.
Yeah.
I know this one doesn't really fall into, like, the gaming one, because there's only, like, a couple aliens games. But, for instance, like...
Didn't Red Dead have something with an alien? Or with a UFO?
Well, I mean, every Rockstar game has something to do with an alien at this point.
But didn't Red Dead 2 have, like, you could come across a UFO at some point in the game?
There's also the fact you interact with the time traveler.
That's right.
For one of, like, the side mission things you can do.
That's right.
So, I mean, Red Dead's kind of weird with that. But, like, for instance, with aliens, they have fucking space stations. Shit we don't have.
Yeah.
But they're using computers from, like, the 60s. Like, the 60s and 70s. Like, those fucking, like, white brick computers that look like Commodore 64s. Like, seeing that stuff. And then I'm like, okay, like, you know, you would see someone explain something or show someone something like that to be like, oh, okay, like, this is a retro game. They're like, no, look out space. Look outside, dumb, we're in space.
Look outside, dumb.
Because I like it as well because most settings and atmospheres that have stuff like that is, excuse me, they base, like, this technology in the world off of that idea. Like, because for instance, with aliens, they have a lot of it is like, oh, a lot of it's just, like, manual labor stuff. Excuse me. But like for instance, like with generators, it's not just like pull the thing. No, it's like you got to hit the button like 700 fucking times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and I think doing stuff like that is interesting to me.
Just
What's your next one?
Just the alternate history. I was going to ask you, do you have any more? Because I do not.
Think off the top of my head.
Like I was thinking, I like I mentioned my open worlds. I mentioned my zombie settings. I mentioned my World of Warcraft and Blizzard. I think I'm all tapped out with settings. Like the only other ones I can mention is the like God of War settings. I've liked, but mainly that's a new one. The old one was kind of just like I don't know if because it was an older game, like. And that's the thing I've liked with gaming as it's evolved, is we've got these settings. Like, nobody goes back to a Sega game or an NES game or even a Super NES game and goes, oh man, I really love that setting, because most of the side scrollers, you didn't really get that setting. It was just like whatever template the dev wanted to put behind you. So like, even some of my favorite games from like the Sega and Super Nintendo eras, the settings just don't even compare to what they are now. You know what, Castlevania? I would say Castlevania would break that mold, just because of the you're on the outside of the castle, the inside of the castle. So Dave's right. Maybe a Castlevania. Maybe that's why, again, on top of the gameplay and the game itself, maybe that's why Castlevania is such a beloved game and why it kind of it always gets talked about by people. Have I given you enough time to think?
You did. One of them kind of ties into Fallout itself, because it kind of follows like the same sort of way to it. Yeah. I fucking love BioShock's atmosphere. No one will ever change my mind.
How dark it is. Oh my god. Like, I told you. You play that game. This is the first one, by the way. If you're going to play that game, you play it in the basement with your lights off at night. So it's pitch black around you. You play it like that, it will add to the setting. It'll make you piss your pants. Go tell your teachers, your priest, your rabbi that you got to play this game in the pitch black dark.
Yeah. And as well with it, like it kind of adds into like the beginning part of it, like it's sort of like that isolationist thing.
Yes.
Fucking BioShock has it in space because you are at the bottom of the fucking ocean. There ain't no one coming to help your ass. The best you can hope is that the guy isn't fucking lying to you. Spoiler alert, he is. I can spoil the game. It's fucking 14 years old.
And I mean, with that one too, it's like if one thing goes wrong, you're dead. You're dead. There's no escape. You're dead.
I mean, obviously, within game, they have a reason to have you come back. But
yeah, but I mean, you look at it, and it's just like, if one of these glass pipes cracks, we're dead.
Yep. I mean, to be fair, with BioShock 2, they have that, and it's just apparently everyone's fucking peachy keen, just like, no, life's going on as normal. Fuck water pressure. Who needs it?
We learned to swim.
Well, not even we learned to swim. It's just like, and realistic, like, they're built at the bottom of the fucking ocean. That thing cracks, that whole fucking city should pop like a fucking balloon.
Yeah, because of the pressure.
I watched the movie Underwater. Yeah. I understand. I got a slightly big brain when it comes to water pressure. I understand. That shit pops like a fucking grape.
My brain's not entirely smooth.
Yeah, I got at least one. If there's one wrinkle in there, it's water pressure wrinkle.
Soapy just hit us with. My brain's not entirely smooth.
Yeah, but like, for instance, with BioShock 1, that was the stuff that always was like, it adds to that atmosphere. And obviously, this was one of the things I didn't really care for with Infinite, was like, since you have Elizabeth following you the whole game, I'm like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I know that adds to it because Elizabeth's the best part of Infinite.
You like the games where you are alone and you do feel that, like, isolation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially because, the whole time you're having hammered over your head over and over again of like, oh, Rapture's supposed to be this great thing. And it's you're literally seeing throughout the game of like, oh, hey, all that stuff that Andrew Ryan said should be fucking free of charge. I'm seeing why this shit shouldn't be free of charge now.
Yeah.
Because, like, for instance, when he talks about science, the first area you're in, you literally see someone who's like a plastic surgeon talking about, like, we can't make people perfect.
Yeah.
And, like, you literally see he's leaving, like, gore-strewn bodies laying around. simply because they're not perfect, or air quotes perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and like, because then later on in the game, when you fight like the performer, that counts as arts. Like, he literally is like, "Oh, I want you to finish my final art piece."
Yeah.
So it's like, cool. So now, like, the two, like, I'm trying to remember what it is. I think it was, I don't remember what the three things Andrew Ryan said should be, like, up to the people.
Here, let me.
But I remember it was science, arts, and something else. I don't remember what the third one was, but all I know is the other part of the game covers that part.
Let's see, Andrew Ryan.
I mean, obviously, there's always going to be the man says a slave obeys quote.
Yeah.
Even though technically, if we're going to be real, Andrew Ryan doesn't say that.
Society and Rapture.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, because I know the opening monologue, or like essentially the whole gimmicky thing is like, as a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow. You know, the government would say no, it belongs to the people. The church says no, it belongs to God, and Soviet Russia says it belongs to everyone.
The Great Chain. So the exact quote is, I believe in no God, no invisible man in the sky, but there's something more powerful than each of us. Close that ad. A combination of our efforts, a great chain of industry that unites us, but it is only when we struggle in our own interest that the chain pulls society in the right direction. The chain is too powerful and too mysterious for any government to guide. Any man who tells you different either has his hand in your pocket or a pistol to your neck.
I'm trying to remember.
Is that close?
Oh, it's art, science, or industry.
Okay.
That's what it was. Because then obviously you see with industry, they're like, oh, how do we regulate shit? Oh yeah, fuck. Let's just graft people into fucking like scuba suits so they can do the shit we don't want to do.
How do we make sure that no one's overdoing it? I don't know. Every government's trying to regulate now.
Yep. It's like, well, you can't regulate us. Andrew Ryan said you can't.
Yeah, you can't do it. I can, if I want to get my face cut 1,000,000 times, I can do it because I want the perfect nose and the perfect mouth and the perfect eyes, and I want to look like an anime character. Okay, that's what I want, to be an anime boy.
Yep.
I'm a real
and that's
boy.
sort of the thing that I like as well with it is like that sort of like dystopian of like the idea and concept sounds good. No one should be shackled by something that they can't control.
I mean, it brings up the greater thing of course, there's going, and the whole thing about BioShock is like what you said. It sounds good in theory, in principle, not so much.
Yeah. Well, because especially with BioShock, it's literally the entire game is just essentially a middle finger to there was a lady, she published a book. I don't remember what the book was called, but essentially she had she had similar beliefs to Andrew Ryan, but it was also she had a lot of like bad shit to say.
Yeah.
AKA don't repeat the shit she said. She was not a good person.
Yeah.
But like for instance, Andrew Ryan was essentially her turned up to 11.
Oh, okay.
Of the like there should be no restraint whatsoever. Fuck you. But then it's Andrew Ryan realized, wait, I kind of lost control of my own fucking city.
Yeah.
Like,
a little
you
bit.
have, like...
Only a little bit.
But it's like, cool, people are murdering each other because of copyright claims.
Because you can't regulate us. Can't tell me I can't do it. But, Soapy, running out of time a little bit. This is where we're going to end the show for today. Another great Mold Breaker Monday topic from the mind of Soapy. I had one. I was like, oh, dude, let's talk about loot boxes. And Soapy, fucking hammer of God, was like, nope. Have nothing to say on it. So that's why we talked about some video game settings today. Thank you guys for checking out the podcast today. For those of you on Twitch, MVP Sports Live is coming up next. If you're not in the Discord, please join it today. It's the greatest community in the universe. YouTube, link is down below, ! Discord. Type that into Twitch chat for you Twitchers in order to get in on that. If you want to support us, patreon.com/MVPvids is how you can do that. Or you can go ahead and throw us a sub on Twitch, where we are live every Monday through Friday, twitch.tv/MVPvids. And we're also on YouTube at MVP Entertainment. That is going to do it for today. Soapy and I will be back tomorrow talking about more gaming news. Like I said, MVP Sports Live for you people on Twitch is coming up next, so stay tuned for that. And as always, have a good day, everybody.
Bye.